Hey everybody, this is Tim with Op-Ed Daily. So I want to bring up history here in terms of guns, the ability for people to obtain guns, and how we viewed that back when the country first started, essentially. I'll preface this video by saying I'm liberal. I'm very liberal, almost borderline socialist. And maybe I'll talk about that a little bit later. But first, I want to talk about how the framers viewed the country and gun ownership and the like. There's something that a lot of people don't talk about in politics, especially liberals, Democrats, because the Democrats basically push for harder and more strict gun control laws, that sort of thing. And I disagree with the Democratic Party in that regard. I believe gun ownership is a necessity. I believe taking guns from people is actually disastrous policy. And they did, the framers did as well. So let's talk about how that's true. Back in 1792, I know we're going back quite a ways here, but in 1792, there was a series of legislation that was passed called the Militia Acts. There was a first and a second. Now, the first Militia Act of 1792 provided the authority of the president to call out militias of the states whenever the United States shall be invaded or be in imminent danger of invasion from any foreign nation or Indian tribe. It also authorized the president to call militias into federal service whenever the laws of the United States were opposed or the execution of the Militia Act was obstructed in any state by combinations too powerful to be suppressed by the ordinary course of judicial proceedings. Now, that means that whenever the states bucked up against the federal government, who was calling on the militias, the state militias, to serve for whatever reason, because sometimes those small independent militias were not enough to suppress some kind of a danger, an invasion, or, Shays' Rebellion actually comes into play here, and I believe that was actually the biggest reason this was passed. Now, the second Militia Act of 1792, this was passed May 8th, 6 days after the first one. It provided organization of the state militia. It conscripted that every free, able-bodied white male citizen between the ages of 18 and 45 into a local militia company. It mandated that all white men between 18 and 45 were to be placed into a local militia company. Now, it goes further. Militia members who were referred to as every citizen so enrolled and notified shall within 6 months thereafter provide himself, 6 months meaning 6 months after their ability to enroll into the militia. So 6 months after there, provide himself with a musket, bayonet, a belt, 2 spare flints, a cartridge box with 24 bullets, and a knapsack. Men owning rifles were required to provide a powder horn, a quarter pound of gunpowder, 20 rifle balls, a shooting pouch, and a knapsack. There were occupations that were exempt, like congressmen, of course, stagecoach drivers, and ferry boatmen. And then the militias were divided into divisions, brigades, regiments, battalions, and companies, as the state legislatures would direct. Now, the provisions of the first act governing the calling up of the militia by the president in case of an invasion or obstruction to law enforcement were continued in the second act. Court-martial proceedings were then authorized by the statute against militia members who disobeyed the orders. So right there, it tells you that the founders, those at the very beginning of this nation, said we need people to be armed. You must own a firearm. You must enroll in military service. You must be able to provide protection to your nation as a white male between the ages of 18 and 45. Now, subsequent amendments to this changed it to where African Americans could serve. And that was in 1862. And then the Militia Act of 1903 established the U.S. National Guard as the chief body of organized military, reserves anyway. So it shows how the Second Amendment and what the Second Amendment was all about. The government, the founders rather, probably didn't envision a standing army within the United States. I don't believe that they envisioned us having a standing army. But they knew it was very important to have an army of some type. And they knew that these rebellions would continue, and there was nothing they could do about it, because when you've got one state doing this, another state doing that, another state doing this, getting them all to work together in conjunction with one another successfully was a pain in the ass. So they passed these laws. This was one of the first things that they did as a nation, that we did as a nation, was to force men into service and force them to purchase their own firearms. Now, they didn't say, hey, purchase these firearms, bring it here to this warehouse, and we're going to put it here, and then you can't leave with it. No, that's not what they said. Every man in this nation is the militia. The Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia, that's us. That's men. Between the ages of 18 and 45, that's exactly what it is. So to my Democratic counterparts, I disagree with you wholly on gun control. I believe, in fact, we should be mandating people own firearms. We should mandate that people be trained in safety of those firearms and understand how to use those firearms, how to clean those firearms, how to fix those firearms, what to do, what not to do. Because if every man in this country has a firearm and knows how to use it and goes and trains with others in fighting, in protecting this country, it makes us even more powerful than we already are with our military. It makes us almost impermeable to invasions. Why? Because the people everywhere are capable of taking care of themselves, protecting their families, and preventing further invasion. Because they're part of the militia, a well-regulated militia. I'm not opposed to that. I'm opposed to forcing somebody to go overseas and fight. Absolutely. What we're talking about is protection here at home. These people aren't to be sent off some random country because some president has an agenda with the leader of that country and they want to topple that government. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the ability of men between the ages of 18 and 45 being able to protect their country, their family, and their neighbor. And that's an absolute necessity. When a bad guy walks into anywhere, walks into the door, if he knows that 75, 80% of the people that are in there have a weapon on their person, the only time that that man is going to start shooting is if he doesn't care and he wants to die. And when he does start shooting, guess what? He's not going to be shooting for very long. He will not be shooting for very long. Somebody will shoot him dead. And that's the point. By taking guns from people that know how to use it, are trained, and can work with other people, their neighbors, because they're in a militia, that's a necessity. That will protect this nation. But the government is so afraid of revolt because they know they're crooked bastards. They know that they have been screwing the American people over for the last 30 years. They know that. That's why they want to take your guns. And to the Republicans, do you really think that your Republican representatives actually want you to have a gun? Think about this for a moment. What have Republicans actually ever done for you in terms of guns? Not much. They talk about it all the time. They say they want you to have guns. But I haven't really seen any substantive push for opening guns up. In fact, I witness Republicans all the time restricting guns piecemeal. They do it a little bit at a time, like, oh, if you're mentally unstable, no, you can't have any guns. Okay, I'm going to vote for that because I agree. Oh, if you've been to prison, oh, you're a felon. Oh, no, you can't have guns. No. Little bits. They'll take it away just as much as the Democrats will. The only difference is that they're lying to you about it. We need to push for something akin to the Militia Acts of 1792. A lot of people aren't aware of those Militia Acts, but they were there, and it was a requirement, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. People should understand how to protect themselves. People should understand how to protect some kind of an invasion into this nation. The majority of Americans live near our borders. If they can't protect us, who the hell are we going to count on? The military? The military that's run by the same people that have been screwing us over for the last 30 years? I don't think so. So I think everybody needs to think about that kind of stuff before they make judgments about pulling people's guns away from them for arbitrary bullshit. That's what they've been doing. Republicans and Democrats do it. So just think about that, and if you appreciate the information I've just given to you, then you need to write your representatives. You need to write them, point this out to them, and push them to pass comprehensive reform of our current gun control legislation. It's a must. And again, I'm a liberal. I'm almost a socialist. I believe that socialism and regulated capitalism work very well together. I would argue that this country was created as a socialist body. The government was a socialist body. When they start pulling taxes from people and then spending that money on things that benefit the people, that's called socialism. When we pay taxes into a city and it creates a police department or emergency medical services, all that's socialism. The concept of insurance is socialism. The only difference is that somebody else is making money off of that socialist policy and it's more expensive to you. That's the difference. If you pay into an insurance policy and you never use it, guess what? You're still paying for somebody else because somebody else isn't paying as much as they're pulling out of that policy. So you're still paying for somebody else when you pay into an insurance policy. The only difference is that it's costing you more money than it should. Think about that. I urge you all to think about the things that I brought up here. And if you like the video, please like it, hit the share button and share it on Facebook and whatever, and hit the subscribe button as well. That's it for now. This is Tim with Op-Ed Daily. Peace out.